All right, hello and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I'm your host, John Shannon, and today I'm joined by Patrick Frater, who is the CEO at Midwest Engineered Components. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so would you like to kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what you do and what your business is?
Sure. Yep. I'm a native of Wisconsin, and I've lived in the upper Midwest most of my life. I worked originally after I left college. I worked for a factory in the power transmission industry, and that's kind of was my start. I went from there to owning a distributor and rep agency in the power transmission space. I had that business for 20 years. I had a business partner that I separated from. He took the agency. I kept the distributorship. Later, I sold that distributorship to a company called Minerick Corporation, which was then acquired by Command Corporation or Command Industrial Technologies, and which was recently purchased about 2.5 years ago by Motion Industries, which is a big uh, part of the general parts business. So I've been in this industry for literally 40 years off and on. I've done a couple of things in between the sale of the business and buying this agency 2 years ago. Um, so like I said, I worked in mergers and acquisitions for an equity firm for a short period of time. I managed a software support company. And then I've worked at a couple of large industrial distributors. So the last of which being Command Corporation, and I was the Midwest regional director for them. So when they were going to be sold to Motion Industries, I decided to buy this agency. It was an unfortunate situation. The gentleman who had worked for me and ran this agency had died prematurely, and his wife was looking for someone to purchase it. So I didn't want to be part of the acquisition to Motion Industries, so I bought the agency and have been doing this for a little over 2 years now.
Wow, that's really a pretty interesting story because you started the business, sold the business, worked someplace else for a little while, came back around and bought part of the business back that you sold.
Yes, well, it's some of it's when you're involved in a industry like this, it's a pretty tight knit group, and it's like we joke in the industry that you never leave the industry, that you can't because they always suck you back in. I'm actually a past president of our national association, the Power Transmission Distributors Association. And so the good news about working in an association and being part of that is that you get a lot of industry contacts, and that's always important. When you're trying to proceed in your business to have those contacts and to be able to leverage those and those relationships.
Great. So let's talk about some common misconceptions that people may have about running a business. What are some of those that you see out there?
That it's first of all that it's easy. Um, Anytime you run a business, the situation is there's things that I will tell you that people are the best and the worst part about things. In the standpoint that there's some things that you do with people that are just great and fun and amazing, and then there's a lot of things that you find people disappoint you on a regular basis, and unfortunately that's just part of what goes along with it. The big part of it is like in most of the business I've been in, both the distributor and the rep agency, sales are really the kind of the key motivator to it. But there's obviously in the distributor business, there's a lot of operational things and things that go along with it. So depending on how the business is run, you'd like to spend a lot of time helping with the sales, but unfortunately it's really difficult to do that because there's so many other things that drag you away. And so everybody thinks it's just a big vacation, which is not true. As an owner, you have to put in the hours and like I said, wear multiple hats. And so that's when I owned my distributorship, the facility that we rented, I was the guy who cleaned all the toilets for the first 3 years. So You know, but it was just a way to save money so we didn't have to have a cleaning staff. So,
So
um,
you mentioned hours, right? And the amount of hours it takes. How do you really, or do you maintain a work-life balance as a business owner?
I think it's one of those things that you have to be very strategic about. I was fortunate when I had the business that I had a business partner that I got along with pretty well. He was an early riser. I'm just the opposite. I'm a late guy, and so we actually kind of divvied up some of the management because he was in early and I was in late. So I'm one of those people that would prefer to come in at 8 o'clock and work till 7 or 8 o'clock at night rather than he'd like come in at 5 and be done at 5. So I think that's the things, and then you have to, you spend a lot of time, you spend a lot of hours, but you have to strategically take time when you something important comes up in your family life or whatever else. And I did that at the time. I both coached my daughter in traveling basketball and also took her to horse shows, and so I did those things with her as well. And
Well, that's good. Now, you mentioned having a partner and you guys kind of had, the hours more covered than a normal owner would. Did you guys have any specific rituals or habits that you used that kept you motivated and focused?
well, I think each of us played off each other. I was again very fortunate. I know him till to this day, and still get along with him, which is I know pretty tough. Anytime long relationships are challenging, whether it be marriages or business partnerships. But I still respect him today. Completely different person than I am. He's a type A, wired and fired. I laughingly told him one time that he came running into my office, and I do mean running into my office, and told me that we had gotten an order he didn't know about. Well, he had kind of been in charge of sales, and I looked at him and I said, "Isn't that good?" That somebody else had done something he didn't know about. And then the other thing I proceeded to tell him was that if he didn't slow down in the office, I was going to have to put in speed bumps. So
Oh, that's funny. That's good. So, as businesses evolve and have evolved, how do you stay adaptable and open to change? So you kind of came back to this company after a few years. What what were some of the things you needed to adapt to or change to or change in the company?
Oh, there's been a myriad of changes over the years, and obviously because of the tenure that I have, the changes they're always changes. It's a matter of embracing mostly the right ones, and that's the part of the decision process. And early on, when I went to school, there were no PCs, and so one of the things that happened as we started the business is that was the beginning of when the original PCs came in. I embraced the computer technology, and had our organization early on, in completely computerized, and so that was a great change. It's stuff like we had a little pride in that we had one of the first fax machines. I mean, I'm dating myself here, but we had one of the first fax machines in Minneapolis. So, those kind of things, adopting that technology, everybody, car phones, case in point, there were no car phones when I first started. And I had a dollar figure that when it hit that number, I was going to have a car phone. And my partner thought I was nuts, and I got the car phone. And I think it was $1,000. Once they got below $1,000, now they're next to nothing. But $1,000, and then I was out working with him, and he utilized the phone with me, and he was like, "Oh my God, I got to get one of these." So it was just, you could see the value once you had one. And it's always something else. It was, the 2000 era. Everybody was afraid that all the computer systems were going to collapse. And one of the things that we did is we went ahead and installed a up-to-date computer system, literally in 1999, because I wasn't going to get caught, with the problems of the 2000 era. And every year afterwards, it seems like there's something that comes up. And I think probably the biggest challenges for me in the last 5 to 10 years has been actually working the HR side of the business, and dealing with the Gen Zs and Gen Xs because their mindset. Although I have a daughter that's now 38, and so she, you know, I don't really the Gen Xers and the Gen Zs are an interesting bunch, and it's sometimes tough to relate to them. So I think that from a hiring standpoint, it's been, what I was traditionally used to is gone. So
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of people that I do speak with have mentioned the HR challenges that they've had over the last few years, um, just in every industry. Um, so
And
so
it's not just the smaller companies. Like I said, I work for Command, and Command was a billion-dollar company. And I had conversations with the senior VPs that I think most of my job was HR. I really, even though I was technically part of the sales group and, managed 15 branches and over 80 people. Um, HR was still one of the biggest things I had. They had their own HR department, but when they're up here doing HR, they're not really at the street level, and that's where the rubber hits the road.
yeah, so let's kind of talk about what are some of the maybe strategies that you're using to remain innovative in your industry or in your space.
Well, part of it is just evaluating the industry. I
Mhm.
think because the industry is changing, and we were always automation focused to some extent. That automation now has ratcheted up to a whole new level. I mean, originally the things, that were considered automation are kind of considered passe now. And, you start looking at the robotics that, and we don't specifically rep a robotics line, but we rep a lot of products that support the robotics. So, motors and actuators that do the positioning of product, and then the robot can come in and grab the product or whatever the case may be. So we do a lot that's associated with that, and it's really just evaluating where that's going and what's happening with it, and seeing the products that are, frankly, I've got a couple of products that are probably going to die soon in terms of they're just going to go away. And so the point is that a product you actually keep, or is that a product you figure a way to phase out of it or whatever before it actually dies? Because obviously, you don't want to, follow the sinking boat into the bottom. So, and that's one of the things that we are working on now is how to evaluate lines. So looking at it from a financial perspective, because reps have a different take on the financial side than, when you do, like when I was a distributor, it was, you did the billing, and there's a lot more financials in it. And a rep, you basically sell the product, and you get a commission check from it. So the financials are relatively simple, which is a godsend in terms of, I spent a lot of time on the financials in days gone by. Even when I worked for another big distributor, financials are a big piece of it. It's not nearly as important. This truly is a more sales based situation. So, that's the primary goal, but you still have to evaluate whether the products you're selling are the right products for your team. Are they products that you feel the industry wants and is moving forward in the industry? Or are they products, like I said, that in some cases, it's just a product where, and obviously the COVID, and I don't mean to sidetrack here, but, COVID changed a lot of things and opened a lot of eyes. And so, in looking at the product lines, there's some people that we're dealing with that still haven't pulled themselves out of the COVID dilemma and supply chain issues. And so there's a point in time where you've got to just say, look, if you guys can't figure this out, I'm not sure, we should be working together. So, like I said, there's a lot of evaluations that have to be done for us. And then the other part is that by the nature of a rep agency, you're living on a razor's edge, because if you don't do a good enough job as a rep agent, sell enough product, you lose the line. If you sell too much, they normally take the territory back from you and put their own person in there. So you're always walking on, if you do too good a job, you lose it. If you don't do a good enough job, you lose it. So it's one of those things, and you don't really want to spend your time thinking about what's too good a job. you really just want to plow forward and be successful.
You're forward thinking about, the products and the product lines. Could you offer maybe just a glimpse into the future of your future plans and goals that you have for your business?
Well, from our standpoint is I'm seeing that the, commodity-based products, and I won't go into detail what I consider those to be. And because we do some mechanical products and electrical products, the commodity-based products are problematic because of the expansion in the um, channel, because it was fairly straightforward in the past. You had rep agents and you maybe had distributors and you had customers. Well, now you've got the Amazons and the online retailers, and they don't necessarily need to be large companies. They can be fairly small companies and be pretty effective. So from an investment standpoint, there's a fairly low bar to get in. And now the question is that how does the manufacturer establish his channel? How does he control his channel? Um, and what's in the best interest of the product line and I see the commodity products ending up to be probably handled more by the extremely large distributors like Motion Industry or by the online people, because there's not enough of a differentiator for, when you're working sales. One of the things you have to always be able to establish for the customer is what makes brand A better than brand B. And when you're a commodity product, it's really challenging. And so I think that that's the case. And in the automation space, which is the space that's going to continue to blossom and move forward, um, that is a matter of being able to establish that you can do the automation quickly, efficiently, easily, because I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to make it work. You know what I mean? And so, but I also see that in that space, because it's technologically a challenge, and there's got to be certain people who understand those technological challenges, that you really have to be prepared to deal with that. And that's not something you can do online. I mean, you can have all the videos and you can have all the, little, I can't think what you call it, little guy in the corner that you can ask questions to. That's, pretty rudimentary questions. Yes, that works. But when it starts to get into the technological things, like programming things and interface things and, I just don't see how that works. I mean, and God love, Automation Direct would be an example of someone who is an online person, has done a great job, but they still have kind of taken the lowest common denominator of the market. They don't typically deal in the real high end stuff. They kind of skim off the bottom, and that's usually more price sensitive too. So now if they can have the best price, that kind of drives a lot. But when you start to get into more technological stuff, I don't see robots being, I mean, I know there's a lot of people in the robotics space that, like schools that are, working with kids and doing all this stuff. So I think it's getting better and easier for people to, it's still, there's so much interfacing that has to be done between the robotics and the software that's, the manufacturing software that's on the floor, and the software that's, the business software. And so all those interfaces have to be made. And that's not something you can do with an online person very well. I mean, that takes a lot of knowledge and effort. And I'm not sure people have the time to do that anymore. You know what I mean? They need somebody to be able to coach them, get them through it, and move on.
Yeah. What, so the show's kind of directed at people who are entrepreneurs or just getting started in business. For those aspiring entrepreneurs who are just starting their journey, what advice would you offer to them for getting going?
Well, I think, the biggest thing is that be careful of your own success. I've had several examples of that in my career where, we had some very significant successes. And, sometimes you have a tendency to start reading your own press and thinking that you're really good when it was a success. You know what I mean? And business is all about a multitude of successes. And so it's not the win you had today. It's the wins you're going to have tomorrow. And so, and also looking at the people you become involved with. I have had the pleasure or displeasure, as the case may be, to have the CBA in my office a couple of times. That's the Criminal Bureau of Apprehension, for people that we were doing business with. And they had been unscrupulous people. Fortunately, we had never tied our business close enough to theirs that we were actually caught up in their shenanigans. But it's a terminally bad day when you get the CBA sitting in your lobby, because now it's like, uh-oh. And anything you might have worked on could go down the drain quickly in that kind of a scenario. So it's you have to judge the people you're working with, and just because they may be very good at something, that ethics part still comes in. You really need to be careful who you do business with.
Mhm. Ethics are key for sure. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, I think the biggest thing is as you said, it's keeping an open mind and looking at the way things are going, because with the movement in technology, that what is going to happen 5 years from now is completely different than what's happening today. And if you're not moving with it, you're going to be part of the flotsam and jetsam along the way. So I think it's a matter of always embracing, knowing you have to change. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then, I could talk all about planning and all of that kind of good stuff. And I would love to tell you I'm the world's best planner, not. But I think it is important. And I think you need to step back and put plans in place and try to organize yourself. And, but I think it's still the motivation, just do. And that's the thing. And so as long as in your plans that they're not so convoluted or complicated that you can't just do. So that's part of it. You need to just do.
Great. Those are some nice closing comments. I appreciate that. So thank you so much for your time today, Patrick. It was great
Mhm.
meeting you and obviously learning more about your business and your journey with this business. To
Okay.
everybody, oops, sorry, to everybody watching out there, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.